There was a time when the world felt simple and safe and full of promise. When the biggest worry was whether the ice cream truck would come by before the sunset. I remember those endless summer days at Grandpa's house, a sprawling old estate on the edge of town, surrounded by acres of wild gardens and whispering trees. The kind of place where secrets were kept in the cracks of the wooden floors, and the scent of fresh pine filled the air. Grandpa Henry was the heart of it all. A quiet man with gentle hands stained with grease from his workshop, always ready to fix a broken clock or tell a story about the past. It was his world, and we were lucky enough to grow up inside it. 4 kids. Me, Jessica, Owen, and Nick. Siblings by blood, but also by an unbreakable bond forged through scraped knees, whispered plans, and countless adventures. Jessica was my shadow, my constant companion. We shared everything, from braided hair in the early mornings to secrets whispered in the dark when the world outside was too loud. We were inseparable then, like 2 halves of the same whole. But growing up isn't kind to all friendships. High school came with new rules, ones that Jessica seemed to master effortlessly. She thrived on attention, the laughter of friends, the looks of boys, the thrill of standing out. And I faded into the background, unnoticed and quietly aching. Then came Jay. For the first time, I thought I had something that was truly mine, a love that was mine alone. But Jessica wanted that too. She didn't just take Jay from me. She took my trust, my peace, my sense of belonging. I left without a word, without a fight. I disappeared into silence, hoping the past would stay buried beneath the years. But the past doesn't stay buried. It has a way of creeping back when you least expect it. That's when the letter came. Grandpa Henry was gone. And the home we all grew up in, the place that held our childhood, was no longer mine. The letter said Jessica had inherited everything. The house, the land, the memories. But I knew my grandfather's heart. I knew the way he looked at me when I left, how he held my hand when I was scared. He would never have left me nothing. So I returned. Not to beg for what was lost, but to uncover the truth hidden beneath the polished surface of smiles and family gatherings. Because sometimes the hardest battles are the ones fought in silence. And sometimes the only way forward is to face the past, no matter how painful. This is my story of family, of betrayal, and of the fight to reclaim what's rightfully mine. The moment my fingers brushed the cold iron handle of Grandpa's front door, a rush of memories flooded my mind. Childhood summers spent chasing fireflies, whispered secrets shared under the vast night sky, and the comforting creak of the wooden floor beneath my bare feet. I pushed the door open slowly. The familiar scent of aged cedar and dust welcomed me, but it was tinged with something else, a faint bitterness, like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for me to return. Stepping inside, the grandeur of the old estate hit me all at once. The high ceilings, the faded wallpaper patterned with ivy, the heavy curtains that let in soft pools of afternoon light. It was exactly how I remembered it, yet entirely changed. In the living room, Jessica was waiting, poised and immaculate in a way that screamed control. Her smile was polished, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome home," she said, voice smooth and calm. But it wasn't home for me anymore. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat and forced myself to meet her gaze. "I need to see the will," I said, voice steady, though my hands trembled slightly. She paused for a moment, then reached into her leather purse and pulled out a sealed envelope. It was thick, official, stamped with the law firm's seal. I took it, fingers brushing hers for a brief moment, cold and distant. Alone in the quiet guest room, I carefully broke the seal. My eyes scanned the pages, heart pounding louder with every word. Jessica was named the sole heir to everything. The house, the estate, every last piece of Grandpa's legacy. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. Grandpa had always been fair, always had a soft spot for each of us, even when we fought, even when we fell short. How could he leave everything to her? That night, with only the dim light of the bedside lamp, I reread the will over and over. Something didn't sit right. The signature looked too smooth. The date seemed off, but I had no proof, only a sinking feeling and a growing knot of suspicion. The next morning, I packed a small bag and set out for the town where Grandpa had spent his final years. My first stop was Mr. Calloway's office, the man who had handled Grandpa's legal affairs. The building was old, with peeling paint and a faded brass plaque by the door. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and paper. I waited in a stiff leather chair until Mr. Calloway appeared, a man in his 60s with tired eyes and a guarded smile. When I asked about the will, he grew tight-lipped. "All legal matters are confidential," he said firmly, avoiding my eyes. I pressed him further, but he remained evasive, deflecting with vague answers and polite refusals. Leaving his office, I felt more determined than ever. If someone had tampered with Grandpa's wishes, I would find out, no matter what it took. I left Mr. Calloway's office with more questions than answers. His tight smile and unwillingness to help only deepened my suspicions. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to retrace Grandpa's last days myself. The town where he lived was small, quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew each other and secrets didn't stay hidden for long. I started at the library, a cozy brick building with sun-warmed steps and shelves lined with dusty books. The librarian remembered Grandpa Henry well. She told me about the afternoons he spent poring over old records, always curious, always searching for something. He was a good man, she said softly, very private, but he loved his family fiercely. Next, I visited his workshop, a little garage filled with clocks in every stage of repair. I ran my fingers over the worn workbench where he had spent hours, the tools still neatly arranged as if waiting for him to return. On a dusty shelf, I found a small, leather-bound notebook, Grandpa's handwriting inside, messy but determined. Flipping through the pages, I saw sketches, notes about his will, names and dates, but one page caught my eye. A note about meeting with someone named Calloway just days before he passed. The tone was uneasy, as if Grandpa had been worried. Then I stopped by the local cafe where he had his morning coffee. The barista smiled when she saw me. Henry always ordered black, never missed a day. I asked if he had been acting differently lately, and she hesitated, glancing toward the back. He seemed distracted, like something was weighing on him. Each place, each person added a piece to the puzzle, and the picture wasn't coming together nicely. That night, back in my hotel room, I laid out everything I'd found. The will, the notebook, the librarian's words, the workshop notes, and Mr. Calloway's coldness. It was clear someone had been rewriting the story. And I was ready to find out who. By now, it wasn't just a gut feeling. It was real, tangible. Something about Grandpa's will had been tampered with. I just didn't have the full picture yet. I wasn't a lawyer or a detective, but I was his granddaughter, and that was enough. I started with the handwriting. I compared Grandpa's signature on the new will to dozens of letters he'd written me over the years. Birthday cards, post-it notes he left on the fridge, little scribbled recipes for his perfect pancakes. They didn't match. The signature on the new will was cleaner, straighter, like it had been traced, or worse, forged. I took photocopies and drove 2 towns over to meet with a friend of a friend, a retired notary named Mrs. Grant. She had worked with estates for over 30 years. She took one look and raised an eyebrow. "This doesn't look like a man with shaky hands in his final days," she said. That was all I needed to hear. I asked her if she could verify the witness signatures, the names scribbled below Grandpa's. She said she'd try. I returned to the law firm 2 days later, unannounced. This time, Mr. Calloway wasn't alone. I spotted Jessica leaving his office, both of them whispering too quietly and too urgently to be casual. They didn't see me. I stepped back into the shadows of the hallway, watching. My stomach turned. Why would she need to meet with him privately, without the rest of us? Back in my car, I wrote everything down. Every detail. Every time and date. I dug deeper into Calloway's records. I posed as a potential client and got a receptionist to hand me a brochure listing all his recent public probate cases. Grandpa Henry's wasn't even listed. That night, I called my older brother Nathan. He had always been close with Grandpa too, the one who helped fix up the house every summer. I asked him if he'd ever seen a draft of the will. He paused. "He sent me a letter once," Nathan said, "back in the spring. Said he was updating the will, but he made it clear we'd all be taken care of, equally." That was before he got sick. But in the final will, Jessica got everything. My second brother, Luke, had never cared much for family drama, but even he admitted something didn't feel right. Jess was always competitive and charming when she needed to be. He didn't say it directly, but I could hear it in his voice. Even he didn't trust her anymore. I went back to the workshop one more time. Something about that place calmed me. I noticed a drawer I hadn't checked before, jammed shut, but after a little effort, it opened with a loud snap. Inside was an old camcorder, dusty, battery dead. I brought it back to my motel and charged it with an old adapter. There was only one clip on it. Grandpa, sitting in his chair, frail but alert, talking about the importance of fairness and legacy. "I don't want my grandchildren fighting over money. Everything should be equal. That's the only way." That video changed everything. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. I had proof, and I was going to make sure no one buried it. The night I watched Grandpa's final video, something shifted inside me. His voice, trembling but firm, echoed in my chest long after the screen faded to black. Everything should be equal. That's the only way. Jessica had lied. Calloway had helped. They turned Grandpa's legacy into a transaction, cold and clean. But now I had the cracks. I just needed to pull. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't need to. In the morning, I put on my softest sweater, the pale blue one Jessica always said made me look sweet, and returned to the house. She greeted me with that same distant hug, like a politician accepting applause. "You stand longer?" I nodded. "Just a little. The memories. It's a lot." She smiled. "Of course. Whatever you need." But I could see it in her eyes. She didn't want me here. That was my first win. Over the next few days, I made myself smaller. I helped set the table, folded laundry I pretended was mine, offered to drive into town for groceries. Meanwhile, I was watching. I noted every time she took a call behind a closed door. I memorized the times she'd retreat to Grandpa's office. I marked the books she removed and the safe she never fully locked. I noticed something else, too. Every time she left, she checked to see if I was watching. She was hiding something. One night, when she went out to meet friends from college, I went into her room. I hated the violation, but this wasn't about boundaries anymore. This was about truth. In her closet, inside an old leather bag zipped deep into a side pocket, I found a flash drive. Password protected, of course. But Jessica had always been predictable. Her world was built on appearances and control. On the third try, our childhood cat's name, Mittens 27, it opened. What I saw nearly made me drop the laptop. There were 2 wills. One dated 7 months ago, signed, notarized, scanned. It split everything evenly between the 4 of us. The other, the one currently filed, was dated only 3 months ago. Sole beneficiary? Jessica. The signature on that one, identical to the one I'd shown Mrs. Grant. Forged. My throat tightened. This was it. This was the thing. The knife in the dark. She hadn't just taken my fiancé. She'd stolen my family's home. Our memories. Grandpa's wishes. And she had the nerve to smile at me over coffee like nothing happened. I closed the laptop and took a long breath. I wanted to storm into her room the second she walked in and burn her whole world down. But that would be easy. Loud. And over too soon. No. She had built her trap carefully, and now I was going to walk her into mine. So I started baiting her. I mentioned the will over breakfast. Isn't it odd Grandpa changed it so late? I wonder why. Jessica barely flinched, just took a sip of tea. People get reflective near the end. Her calm was almost admirable. That afternoon, I visited Mr. Calloway again. No appointment. I brought coffee and wore my softest voice. I just wanted to ask. Grandpa didn't seem like the type to play favorites. Did something change his mind? He smiled too quickly. Health makes people rethink things. I leaned forward. I found his video, the one from the workshop. He said everything should be equal. That was months before the new will. Silence. I watched the blood drain from his face. Video? I smiled. Yeah. I thought maybe you'd seen it. He cleared his throat and stood too fast. I'm afraid I have another client arriving. I nodded politely, but I left slowly, just enough time to let the thoughts stew. Now they knew I was onto them, but they didn't know what I had. And that was the advantage. They were nervous now. I could feel it. Jessica stopped leaving the house as much. Calloway avoided my calls completely. I wasn't just the quiet sister anymore. I had become a problem. And problems, they try to solve quietly. I knew I didn't have forever. Jessica would move fast to cover her tracks when she realized the flash drive was missing. So I moved faster. I sent the video of Grandpa, the 2 wills, and a typed statement to a private estate attorney 2 towns over, someone with no connection to Calloway's firm. I didn't sign my name. I just wrote, "What would you do if this were your family?" By the next day, I had a response. The original will, if verified, could invalidate the second one entirely, especially if the second had forged elements. I knew it, but now I had it in writing. I called my brother Nathan and showed him everything. His face tightened. He hadn't trusted Jessica since the funeral, but this was war. He agreed to back me. That weekend, the four of us, Jessica, Nathan, Luke, and I, met at the estate. Jessica tried to control the meeting, of course, tried to steer the conversation towards memories and healing, but I interrupted her. I pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. Let's talk about truth instead. She barely glanced at it. What's this, Emma? 2 wills, 2 dates, 1 forgery. She stared at me. I stared back. You went through my things? You went through Grandpa's legacy. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she laughed. You don't know what you're talking about. Grandpa changed his mind. Did he also change his signature style overnight? Her jaw twitched. That was when I knew I had her. I walked out without saying another word. I needed her to stew in it. That night, I filed an anonymous report to the Bar Association about Calloway, submitted copies of the conflicting documents, plus a notarized statement from Mrs. Grant who had verified the signature forgery. But I wasn't done. I wanted Jessica to know the truth was coming, inch by inch. So, I mailed her a copy of Grandpa's video. No note, no explanation. Just his voice from that old camcorder. Everything should be equal. That's the only way. A week later, I got a call from a state investigator. The will was being reopened. Calloway was being questioned. The game was no longer quiet. Now it was official. And I had drawn first blood. It all started to unravel faster than I expected. One phone call to the state bar turned into a subpoena, then an inquiry, then a full investigation. Calloway was silent at first, too confident, too careful, but under pressure, silence cracks. When they searched his office, they found drafts, rough templates of the forged will. His handwriting, his laptop. He tried to claim it was a miscommunication, but no one miscommunicates fraud. Jessica, of course, denied everything. He acted alone. I didn't know. I was just grieving. She cried, she lied. She even tried to play the victim, said I had manipulated her, that I was obsessed. But then came the emails. Buried in Calloway's archives, messages between them, backdated and foolishly labeled things like estate adjustments and final push. One email? Once it's done, no one will challenge it. Emma's too soft. Nathan's checked out. We'll be fine. I printed that one. I framed it. For me. The hearing was quiet, civil on the surface. Jessica wore white, like innocence could be sewn into fabric. I sat 2 rows back with Nathan beside me. Luke wasn't there. He hated conflict. But I didn't need a full army. I had the truth. The panel ruled in less than an hour. The second will was invalid. Grandpa's real wishes, equal division, were restored. Calloway was disbarred. Jessica, she didn't go to jail. That wasn't the kind of story this was. But she lost everything she tried to steal. She had to move out of the estate, return the assets she'd shifted. The last time I saw her, she stood at the gate of the house we grew up in. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She just said, "You always were good at playing innocent." I smiled. I'm not innocent. I'm just better at not getting caught. Then I turned and I walked into the house. Our house. Grandpa's house. And this time, I wasn't the one being left behind. They say blood is thicker than water, but I've learned that ink, the kind that signs wills, forges signatures, drafts lies, can be thicker than both. After the hearing, things didn't magically return to normal. There were no apologies, no tearful reunions around a fireplace, just silence. Heavy, echoing silence. Jessica disappeared from our lives, and not one of us rushed to follow her. Nathan and I stayed in touch. Luke kept his distance, said he was tired of choosing sides. I understood. We'd all lost something, but I had won back the only thing that truly mattered to me: the truth. I started spending weekends at the house. At first, it was just small things, fixing up the workshop, organizing old books, restoring Grandpa's garden. But it felt right, like I was stitching something back together. There are nights I'd sit on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, a cup of tea in my hands, watching the wind move through the trees like memories. Sometimes I thought of Jessica, of how we used to be. She was my sister, my partner in every childhood crime, sneaking cookies, stealing glitter pens, building forts in the attic. And then she took him. And then she tried to take this. I don't know where that kind of hunger comes from. I don't know if she ever loved him or just wanted to win. But I stopped asking myself those questions the day she walked away from the house for the last time. Because that day, I stopped being the girl she used to compete with. I became the woman who saw her clearly and beat her at her own game. Not by screaming, not by begging, but by paying attention. By letting her believe I was soft. I still wear that pale blue sweater sometimes. It makes me look harmless. Let them think that. Let them all think that. The house is quiet now. The kind of quiet that doesn't ache, it breathes. I keep Grandpa's photo in the front hallway, right by the door. And every time I come home, I look at him and I whisper, "Don't worry, I fixed it." And I did. Not with rage, not with revenge, with patience, with precision, with truth. And that was enough. Thanks for watching. You can see more exciting stories right here.